If you are thinking about moving to Austin or anywhere in the Austin area, you're probably trying to figure out if you can even afford to live here. And if you're not thinking about that, you should be, because Austin is relatively affordable when we compare it to cities like San Francisco, the Bay Area, to New York, and to Seattle, but it may not be very affordable if you are comparing it to like Lexington, Kentucky. So today we're going to talk about one of Austin's coolest suburbs, one of my favorites, Cedar Park. We're going to look at the cost of living there to see if it is a good option for you if you're thinking about moving here. Hi, I'm Tiffany Moore. I'm a local realtor and broker right here in Austin, Texas. I help people from all over the world move to Austin. So if that's something that you're interested in, my contact info is on the screen. Jot it down, reach out to me, DM, text, email, whatever you're comfortable with, and I will help you out when you're moving to Austin. So let's talk about Cedar Park. Cedar Park is a really cool suburb of Austin. It's just north of Austin, and it's got a lot of cool stuff to do there. It's already been developed. It's already gone through its growth phase. There's really not a lot of new construction or new development going on in Cedar Park. Most of the new construction is going on further north in Leander, Georgetown, Liberty Hill, those places. So what I love about Cedar Park is that everything is already established. It's got established neighborhoods and restaurants. The grocery stores are up. The Costco is up. Target is there. So like everything has already been built there. And when it comes to homes, the homes are kind of on bigger lots. They've definitely got like bigger established trees. You have this canopy of just leaves and greenery in most of the neighborhoods, and just beautiful like shrubbery and plants and things that have already kind of grown into themselves. They're not just brand new little saplings that have been planted in the last year. So it's an established community. Some of the homes there are a little bit older, but there's really nothing older than like 20 or 30 years in Cedar Park. So whether you can afford it or not is a different matter. I will say that in general, Cedar Park is a lot more affordable than Austin. As a general rule of thumb, the further away you are from Austin, the more affordable things get. Cedar Park is kind of the first suburb just outside of the city of Austin. So it's going to be definitely cheaper to live there than within Austin proper, but not as affordable as if you were in like Leander, Georgetown, Liberty Hill, those areas. So today we're going to look at several factors that play into the cost of living: housing, transportation, groceries, all those things. So when we compare the cost of living in Cedar Park to the national average, it's pretty much on par. So for like the cost of living index, the national average is 100. Cedar Park is a 103 on that index. So it's very slightly higher than the national average. And the reason that it's slightly above the national average is really just due to the cost of housing. So as far as your total cost of living in Cedar Park, 43% of those expenses is going to be towards your housing, followed by 12% for transportation, 11% for groceries, and 7% for utilities. And your healthcare is going to be about 11% of all the costs for your cost of living. Also, something good to know is that Cedar Park actually had an increase in cost of living of 1.2% over the past year, and the majority of that increase was from transportation, food, and housing costs. But to kind of ease off of those expenses, the cost of groceries in Cedar Park is 11% lower than the national average. So let's talk about housing and the cost of housing. So when it comes to housing expenses, homeowners in Cedar Park have a median income of about $105,000 per year, and renters have a median income of about $54,000 in Cedar Park. I was looking up some numbers to try and give you a good expectation or an explanation for the cost of housing and what you can expect month to month, but the numbers that kept showing up online were like vastly incorrect. So I'm going to share some info that I'm gathering now just from working with a client who is interested in buying a home in Cedar Park. So we're going to use his story kind of as an example. So my client is looking for a 4-bedroom house that's between 2,500 and 3,000 square feet in Cedar Park. And the prices for these homes range anywhere from $550,000 to $750,000. And the differences for those ranges are because of location, the amenities for the neighborhood, the actual qualities and features of the home, the size of the lot, any upgrades that are going on in the house, things like that. So there's a really wide range of homes in Cedar Park in that general $550 to $750 price range. For a home like that, for a home exactly what we were just talking about, you can usually plan on taxes and insurance being about $1,000 to $1,200 a month. So what I really like to do with my clients is figure out, okay, what is your total monthly budget that you are comfortable with for your principal, your interest, your taxes, and your insurance. Let's work backwards from there. So if we know that your taxes and your insurance are going to be about $1,000 to $1,200 a month, we're going to remove that from the budget that we've got for your total monthly payment. So let's say you're planning to put 10% down on one of those 4-bedroom, 2,500 square foot houses. Your monthly payment of your principal, your interest, your taxes, and your insurance is going to be about $4,500 to $5,700. So if you're in the lower price range, around, like, let's say the home you're buying is $550 a month, plan on your total monthly payments being about $4,500. If you're on that higher price range of homes in Cedar Park and the home that we bought is $750, you're going to plan on your monthly payments being about $5,700. And because we're putting down less than 20%, there is going to be a small payment that you'll owe for mortgage insurance. That is going to be the case no matter what amount you put down below 20%. Because interest rates are changing pretty consistently right now, they just dropped like in the past 2 days after increasing, after dropping. They're kind of in a little bit of volatility right now. I really like to work backwards from your monthly payments and figure everything out from there. So what used to get you, a $600,000 house before is now getting you a house about $450,000 to $500,000 just because of the interest rate changes. But if we work backwards from what you're comfortable with paying monthly, we can easily put you in a spot that has you not strapped, where we're still going to get the majority of the things that you want for the house, and you have a realistic expectation for what your payments are going to be for your home. So in Cedar Park, about 29% of the population is renting, and the cost of a 1-bedroom apartment in Cedar Park is around $1,500. Again, give or take the amenities, the location, things like that. So the majority of residents in Cedar Park are homeowners. About 71% of residents own their home in Cedar Park. And the average price for a home in Cedar Park today is about $503,000. And this has changed a lot over the past few years. So we know that the market in the Austin area in general exploded in from 2020 to 2022. In the middle of 2022, everything kind of started to soften because interest rates started to rise, and we're kind of seeing those peaks and valleys still going on, and they'll probably continue to go on through 2023. So prices in the Austin market right now in general have either been stagnant or dropped a little bit. We're seeing the same thing in Cedar Park. What we saw in 2020 to the early parts of 2022 was that houses were getting multiple offers. They would either be on the market for 1 to 2 weekends. Offers would be due on Monday or Tuesday, and the sellers basically had their pick of who is the best offer. We are not seeing that right now because the market, like I said, has slowed down in general. So instead, we're seeing homes that are sitting for maybe a couple weeks up to a month. That's kind of how long it's taking for good homes that are priced well to sell in Cedar Park. Most are not receiving multiple offers, so it is definitely much more friendly for buyers in the market right now. You have much less competition. You're not having to bid way above asking price. We usually have some negotiation leverage. The only hurdle that buyers have right now is interest rates, which, like I said, are kind of varying from week to week and day to day. And there are ways that we can get around interest rates. These are one of the things that we talk about on our calls. We try and strategize our negotiation tactics and figure out, okay, what are interest rates doing today? What are they projected to do? And how do we make sure that we put everyone in a good spot when we're buying this home? Let's talk about transportation expenses. So you really cannot rely on public transportation in Cedar Park. There is a bus system. It's very limited. It's not robust. You're not going to be able to rely on it to get you to the grocery store, to restaurants, to shops, things like that. You are going to need a car. Really, for most places in Austin and the greater Austin area, it's not walkable and you're going to need a car. Gas is pretty reasonable in Cedar Park. I know it varies throughout the country and it varies from day to day. I can tell you on April 4th, 2023, the lowest price for gas in Cedar Park was at Costco. It was $2.76 a gallon. So just think about how that compares to where you're living at right now and maybe to some other places that you're considering moving. I'm pretty sure gas in California is much more expensive. I think gas in Florida is a little bit more expensive too. Last time I visited my parents out there, I was really surprised at how much higher the gas was there versus in Texas. That was several months ago, but it's kind of a general theme that Texas has got pretty low costs for gas versus a bunch of other areas around the country. We mentioned that you definitely need a car in Cedar Park. It's not a walkable area. You can't rely on public transportation. For all of your transportation costs, including buying a car, registration fees, insurance, gas, things like that, plan on that being about 12% of the overall cost of living in Cedar Park. Obviously, things are going to vary depending on like how fancy of a car you get, how much you drive it, what kind of gas you put in. But overall, the average is that the total cost of living for residents of Cedar Park, they're spending about 12% on transportation. Okay, what about restaurants and going out, celebrating, eating out, things like that? The cool thing about Cedar Park is that it has gone through most of its growth phase, but we are kind of still getting newer restaurants rotating in pretty consistently. So there are a lot of options for Cedar Park. There are not a lot of fancy options. So if you are looking to go out and like drop a few $100s on dinner, you're trying to celebrate a promotion or a birthday or anniversary, you're better off just going to Austin for an experience like that. Cedar Park has a lot of like casual and mid-range restaurants, but nothing high end or that you would consider like, oh, okay, this would be like a Michelin star restaurant. Those you're going to want to go to Austin for. But Cedar Park has got really good casual restaurants and mid-range restaurants. We're like, okay, if you want to go out and celebrate, you could definitely drop $100 and $150 on per couple for a nice dinner in Cedar Park. Or you could go somewhere and have a burger for $6 or for $12. So there's just so many different places to go in Cedar Park, depending on what your taste is, how much money you want to spend, just as long as you're not trying to drop that super like promotion, birthday, anniversary money on a restaurant. If you don't go out to eat a lot and you do most of your cooking and you're eating at home, that's what I mostly do. Cedar Park is awesome for that. There are a bunch of different grocery stores to pick from. One of my friends goes specifically to like the Super Target. There's Costco, there's H-E-B, which is our huge grocery store chain in the Austin and San Antonio area. There's a Randall's, there's Sprouts, there's a Central Market. Like there's so many different grocery stores to pick from in Cedar Park. And the good news is that groceries, the cost of groceries overall is about 11% lower than the national average. So if cooking is your jam, if you don't go out to eat a lot and you cook everything at home, you are in luck. Like you're probably going to save money on groceries when you move to Cedar Park, no matter where you're coming from. On average, the Bureau of Economic Analysis estimates that Texans spend about $3,400 a year on non-restaurant sustenance, which is about $289 a month. Cedar Park falls within this range. I can tell you that I eat most of my food at home. I cook most of my food. For me and my husband, just the two of us, we're spending more like $300 to $400 a month on groceries. So kind of use that information and think about how often you cook at home. What are you cooking? How expensive are your ingredients? How often are you going out to restaurants? Things like that. You can kind of figure out like, okay, am I cooking most of my food at home? Am I going out? How is that going to compare to the amount that I'm spending right now? But overall, just know that groceries in Cedar Park are overall cheaper than the national average, and the restaurants in Cedar Park are pretty consistent with the national average. Let's talk about internet. Not many people have cable TV anymore, so if you do watch TV, you're probably getting it from a satellite service or Hulu Plus or whatever else you use. Honestly, most people that I talk to don't even have any kind of cable TV, so I don't even have any prices on that. So we're just going to talk about internet. For internet, your internet bill in Cedar Park is going to be between $50 to $70 a month, depending on like the speed that you get, the area that your house is in, etc. I know that Google Fiber is coming into a lot of communities in the Austin area. There's a lot of areas in Austin proper that have Google Fiber, and there's some in the surrounding areas that have it too. So that might help you get even better service at the same rate than what you're paying for cable internet or for AT&T, DSL, things like that. But basically, you're paying about $50 to $70 a month for internet here, which is pretty consistent with the national average. There are a ton of public schools in Cedar Park, and the school district that Cedar Park uses is the Leander Independent School District. This is one of the top school districts in the Austin area. I would say it's the third highest. So that is going to encompass Cedar Park and kind of all the way down into a little bit into Lakeway, where we're covering like the Steiner Ranch area of Austin. So it's going to be that northwest area of Austin down towards about the middle part of that. If you can look at Steiner Ranch on the Google Maps, it's kind of the southernmost tip of the Leander ISD. So basically just to say that Cedar Park has got really good schools. That's like the third best school district according to greatschools.org as far as schools that are performing at average, below average, or above average. So whenever I talk about schools, I am using greatschools.org as my benchmark, as my data. I'm not sharing my personal preference or personal information about schools because there's a lot of schools here and I don't know every single one of them. So just sharing some objective information with you about the schools. Anyway, Cedar Park has really good schools. They're in a really good school district. And there's also private schools in the area as well. You know that Texas doesn't have state income tax. Instead, we have property taxes, and the majority of our taxes are going to public schools. So while public school is free, it's not really free. We're all paying for it, which I am happy to do. But obviously recognize if you've got kids, you already know that there are a lot of other expenses that go into schools other than just the free tuition that we pay for with our taxes. So we've got to think about books, technology, if you need a laptop, if you need a tablet, any extracurricular activities, uniforms, equipment, things like that. If you need uniforms for school, if you need transportation, all those good things. So it's important to consider all of these factors when you're looking at public schools, private schools, all that good stuff. But just know that Cedar Park has got a lot of public schools. They're in a very good school district, but you'll want to look up every school individually to figure out which one meets your preferences. I mentioned that Cedar Park does have private schools. Tuition for private schools can range anywhere from a few $1,000s a year to over $20,000 annually. So again, it really just depends on what you're looking for, what your personal preferences are, which school is going to be best for you. I will say most people send their kids to public schools. Very few people that I talk to are sending them to private, but it is totally up to your preference and, where you want to send your kids. Okay, let's talk about entertainment and recreation. I mentioned that Cedar Park has already been developed. There's a ton of stuff to do. One of the best things to do in Cedar Park, especially when it's like blazing hot outside, is go to see a movie. So the cost of movie theater tickets in Cedar Park can vary depending on obviously the time of day that you're going and also what kind of theater you're going to. One of my favorite places to go see a movie is at the Alamo Drafthouse. If you've seen any of my other videos, you've probably heard me talk about Alamo. They have, I want to say like 8 to 10 theaters throughout the city. And they're awesome because they show the popular movies. They also show a lot of indie movies. They show a lot of throwback movies and they do like monthly specials. So for Halloween, they'll do a series of kind of like older scary movies like Dracula and Frankenstein and things like that. And they also do special showings. So they usually do a showing for like Big Lebowski and they'll have a quote along and they'll bring like props and stuff for you to use as you're watching the movie. They really kind of make it a party and more of an event rather than you're just sitting down going to see a movie. They have good food, they have good cocktails, a solid beer menu, and they usually have a special menu per month for every movie that they're promoting that month. And tickets for the Alamo are pretty consistent with tickets for a regular movie theater. It's going to be like $12 to $15 per ticket because you're going to get there and you're going to spend your money on all the awesome extras that they have. They literally have a bottomless popcorn bucket on their menu and they just keep bringing you out like buckets of buttered popcorn and it's amazing. The last time we went, they had like churro popcorn, which was like cinnamon and sugar kettle corn, and then they had just like chunks of cinnamon and sugar and butter in the popcorn. I mean, it's delicious. I highly encourage you to get it. Another thing that I love about Alamo is that they have a really strict no talking and no distraction policy. So they tell you before every movie, this theater is now a no talking zone, put your phones down. I can't stand it when I'm watching a movie and I see someone's screen like blow up 4 or 5 rows in front of me. It's really distracting for me and I want to just like watch the movie. And Alamo is really serious about like, hey, we're all here to watch movies. So if you want to talk, go somewhere else and do it. Yeah, I like that they have a lot of control over that and they don't let anyone in there under 18 without a parent. So it's mostly adults there. It's everyone who's kind of there to just chill and watch a movie. You don't have kids running up and down the aisle, things like that. And most people are pretty respectful about not talking, not texting, and just like keeping their phones still, which I really appreciate. You can tell I really love Alamo Drafthouse. They should sponsor me. Okay, other than movie theaters, Cedar Park's got a lot of gyms. So if you like going to the gym, if you like staying healthy, you like lifting weights or going to classes, or even just swimming, a lot of the gyms in Cedar Park have their own pools. They've got really big weight areas, tons of cardio machines. You're going to pay about the national average for what you're going to pay for gym memberships pretty much anywhere. So they range anywhere from like $10 a month for Planet Fitness up to like $30 to $60 a month for your mid-range gyms like Gold's Gym or LA Fitness. And then they also have premium facilities that are $60 to $100 per month. This is going to be more like your Lifetime Fitness or something like that. Okay, let's talk property taxes real quick. If you have seen any of my other videos, you've heard me talk about Alamo Drafthouse, and then you've also heard me talk about property taxes. So it's really important that you need to be aware that the property tax rate is a real thing here. And this is something that I make sure I explain to people when we are talking about buying a home in Cedar Park, in anywhere in the Austin area, moving here, that we are accounting for your monthly property taxes. So I usually estimate that you're going to pay about $1,000 a month for your property taxes and your homeowner's insurance if you're buying a home in the $500,000 to $700,000 range. So if you have an overall budget of $4,000 to spend on your home payment, $1,000 is going to go towards your property taxes, and that leaves $3,000 for your principal and your interest. So that's going to allow you to finance about $400,000 with today's interest rates. This is a conservative number. In reality, it's a little bit more than that, but we're just making sure that I don't put you in a tough spot. So if you're buying a house at about $500,000 price point and you're able to finance $400,000 of it, you're going to have to come up with $100,000 for your down payment, which is 20%. So if you were planning on avoiding mortgage insurance, there you go. You were already working on this plan already. So in lieu of state income tax, that's what we have property tax for. Well, we also have sales tax. So in Cedar Park, the sales tax is 8.25%. And this is a combination of state, county, and city taxes. So the breakdown of where that comes from is your state sales tax is about 6.25%, county is 0.5%, city is 1%, and municipal transit sales tax is 0.5%. So the cost of living in Cedar Park compared to other areas is pretty low. Like we talked about, Cedar Park has a slightly higher than average cost of living. It's at 103 with the national average being 100 on the index. The city of Austin is 129, and most of that is due to Austin's much higher costs when it comes to housing. So I mentioned that the further away you get from Austin, the more affordable housing is. Cedar Park is like one remove from Austin. So it's definitely much more affordable than Austin proper, but it is not as affordable as like Leander, Georgetown, Liberty Hill, those places. And I feel like that is kind of the only thing that's keeping Cedar Park slightly above the national average for cost of living. I hope this gives you some real world insight on what it is going to cost to live day to day in Cedar Park, especially as you're comparing it to either living in the city of Austin or to where you're living in right now. And if you have any more questions about moving to Austin, what it's like to live here, cost of living, all that good stuff, my contact info is below. Feel free to reach out to me however is comfortable for you, and I've got your back when you are moving to Austin. I'll talk to you soon.